You're listening to Mouth Mentality, where we talk to everyday people about everyday food. Hello, and welcome to Mouth Mentality. I am your host, Chef Heidi Marsh. And guys, I cannot believe this is our 5th episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for all of your support, friends, family, strangers. I love you all. I look forward to sharing many stories from many people about everyday food from everyday people around the world. But today's episode, guys, I just want to tell you stories about a day in a life. I want to bring you back to how it started for me. How did I get into this? And what was my journey? There's so many hilarious happenings. There's so many crazy stories I could tell you. Fiddles, let's just get to how it all started. Obviously, we already know I was a Subway worker. And really, that was the basis and foundation for my career as far as like, how do you track numbers? How do you keep from getting people sick? Like, what's food safety and sanitation? And that really grounded me in customer service as well. And my first job as a cook, I was a customer facing short order cook at my college. And I tell you, being a college grill cook, I got to learn how to cook a hamburger. I got to learn how to cook omelets on a flat top, and fast. You had to be alert to what your customers needed, but also alert to what's going on with the food, right? What's going on in the fryer? Is it burning? Are the fries getting crispy and burning? Is the fish sandwich cooked all the way through? And I think anyone that's aspiring to be a chef should at least do a short order grill cook position. You might not do a lot of the fancy things right away, but you learn how to adapt. You learn how to face clients and face customers. Keep your cool under pressure because you see the line. They're right there in front of you. It's not just a line of tickets, it's a line of faces. Hungry, hungry faces. I remember, and this is something I still carry with me to this day, this fantastic lady that we had in the back making the massive Rice Krispie bars with the M&Ms and the Heath Crunch. She was probably retired from what she normally did in her career, and I never got a chance to really talk to her much, but I saw her every morning and I said hello to her, and she was making those, and they were $1, guys. They were bricks of Rice Krispie, soft and, they looked like bricks, but they were soft and supple and delicious and perfectly placed M&Ms throughout. And for $1, you couldn't go wrong. That's a college student's dream. And every day, there she was making them. And to this day, I still make them. And I asked her what the secret was. And the secret, guys, is always use more butter than you think you need. And when I make them, I have butter on my hands. I have butter in my hair. I have butter everywhere, guys. Every time I make these massive brick Rice Krispie treats, I do think of her. I think of her glasses and her curly gray hair and my sleepy college face coming in the morning to start my 6 a.m. breakfast gig. I'm putting on my apron and I'm going out there with my liquid eggs and I'm getting ready to make folded omelets on the flat top, and I'd get a fresh bite of Rice Krispie treat on the way. And I think, yes, it always brings me back to that memory and that person in my life. And what a treat. You can't go wrong. I think in college, I learned to love cilantro. I never really liked cilantro. I think I have the gene that it's subversive, right? There's this gene that makes the flavor of it believed to taste like soap. And they say it's genetic. And I never really liked cilantro. And with the Taco Bell Express in my college and learning to work in that station, I was like, I need to learn to like cilantro. I could taste it in the pico de gallo. I could taste it in the sauces. And I was subversive to it. I didn't like the taste of it. It really grossed me out, but I continued to eat it. I continued to condition my body to a point where I learned to love it, you guys. And we have hundreds of thousands of taste buds, and 100,000 of them are dying and growing every day in our mouth. So if you don't like something, you can teach yourself to learn to like it. I almost love it. I love cilantro. I put it on and in everything. I make a chimichurri. Even my guys on the esports teams, they have the gene, right? But they will slather my chimichurri all over their filet. to this day. And if I don't make it, you can see it on their face. Like, even if I have like a different plan, like a hollandaise or a béarnaise or a café de Paris to go with my filet, I still got to pop out some chimichurri for these guys. They are conditioning and learning to love it as well. As a chef, I was on the weekends grill cooking at Seagate, which was a technology company. And I'd get double my wage to go and cook Saturdays at this technology company. And we had a very high population of Muslim Americans there. And they wouldn't eat beef, they wouldn't eat pork, they only wanted that crispy fish sandwich. And they, for the life of them, could not make a perfect line. They would all come and crowd at me, and screaming fish sandwich and don't touch the pork with your gloves. And, there's a lot of very peculiarities with this particular group. And I'd see him coming and I'd have to tell him, I need you to stand in line. And you'd see him trying to cut, and they're grown men cutting in front of each other to get their crispy fish sandwich, and I made sure that I had a bunch of them on deck and ready to go. And I learned really early on to be quick on my feet, and you have to be gracious and you have to kind of plan ahead too. So for anything, that's like the main key is having systems, right? And I learned that early on. I learned that with Subway. I learned that with cooking at the college. And then I did a short stint at some bars and grills and even a Denny's, guys, cooking overnights. And when you work for Denny's, they make you watch like this whole entire collection of videos. And one of the videos is on firing order. And firing order is how and when do you cook certain foods so that it all comes up at once? And this was like, ta-da, because before I worked at Denny's, I worked as a fry cook at this place called Rascal's Bar and Grill in Apple Valley, Minnesota, known for their seasoned sour cream, right? It's a top secret recipe. Every mom and pop place has that top secret recipe you can't give away. Do I still make that top secret recipe? Heck yeah, I made it the other day, I don't tell people where it came from or what's in it, but I'll make it and I'll give it away. And I was a fry cook, so I only had to focus on my station, cooking all the fries, making the taco salads, and even microwaving the tuna melts, guys. Ugh. But I only had to focus on being a fry cook. I've ever only had to focus on I'm on the wrap station, or I'm on the Taco Bell Express. I'm on this or on that. When I worked for the Denny's, I ran that whole line. It was like me, and sometimes a dishwasher would show up. And it was a nightmare. And in order to flip an egg in a pan and have it land perfectly, I went through 2 cases of eggs, guys. And a case of eggs is 12 dozen. So 144 eggs. So I went through 288 eggs, learning to flip and master the perfect landed egg in a pan. Because before Denny's, I only used a flat top. So I just had to flip things around with my spatula and do folded omelets. And now I'm into the Denny's realm where, yes, you have to make it look like the picture. If it's over easy, over medium, over soft, over hard, but not too hard, over hard, hard, hard. People order eggs every which freaking way. Poached eggs, filled eggs, omelets, frittatas, all of it. A skillet, eggs on top. Every egg. So yeah, they're like, keep cracking and flipping until you feel like you got it, and it's all in the wrist. It's a push-pull. It's not, doing this. It's just push-pull, guys. I mean, first things first, guys, the secret's in the pan. So I got about a 7 3/4. This is just an NSF First Street, made in China. Nothing special, but you take care of them. They're non-stick. Old school little Teflon pan, and you crack your eggs in there. And obviously, if it's an over easy and it already breaks, you start over. You want the yolks to stay intact, and you push pull, push pull, push pull. And I was pushing in and pulling 288 eggs 2 at a time until I got it right. And when you get them out, you give it a gentle wipe, and you never scratch or scrape or use a fork or metal spatula like my wife loves to do. But then you create all these little scratches, and then your eggs kind of get effed. Anyway, there goes the egg pan. Bye-bye. So, but going back to firing order, right? So then I had to wrap my head around what and when to fire so that the meal can be composed and not have like cold elements or like missing elements. And this was interesting because a lot of times when I'd start my shift, the dudes that worked before me never like defrosted my meats or, stocked the line, so I was kind of just left high and dry to like fill up the kitchen with all the things I need, quick like water thaw, steaks, things like that. And I think that's what really made that job hectic. So I got really quick at making prep lists. I got quick at making par lists and stocking my line while doing all the firing at the same time. And this really taught me about the importance of mise en place. I mean, I already kind of knew that. I already kind of learned that. But like getting screwed by the people that come before you, this was a new thing for me. And I developed an ethic that I would never do that to another person. I would never do that to another shift or chef or anybody in my life. I always cared about those who come after me. The cleanliness, the quality of the prep, the abundance of the prep, and just being sure to plan ahead, not only for myself, but for others. And thankfully, I got the job I was after, so I didn't have to keep my Denny's apron on for very long. A little taste was all that I needed, and I made my way to the gay nightclub. So I'd already been out as a queer person for just about a year at that time, and I was frequenting the 18 up nights at a club called Club Metro in St. Paul, which was a multiplex. And I found out that they wanted a cook there, and I got the job, and they put me on the schedule as lucky because there was already 2 other Heidis working for the business. Yes. And I thought, how cool is this? And I was just turning 21. In fact, my first weekend there, I had my first legal Bloody Mary from the bartender, Mickey, after my shift was over. Lo and behold, I was in to run the kitchen all by myself. Within 2 weeks, the person who had hired me left. And this place, not only did they have the mozzarella sticks and the mini taco menu, but they had full-on steak dinner nights, the $7.99 porterhouse, and I was in full-time college. So I had my full-time college load, and I was running this nightclub kitchen, and it was also haunted. Yes, guys, I was working in a building that was an old mafia house. So this place had 2 levels, and the kitchen was on the main level, and there was a basement. There were several different hauntings that I had experienced. There were times I would come in, and aside from our cleaner, I would be the only person in the building. And I would see, figures walking past and feel movements and cool air. And I'd be like prepping my mashed potatoes and getting all my gravies ready and getting my line organized and going down to the creepy freezer in the basement to get my mozzarella sticks and, hauling everything up. But I would feel and see happenings in this building, knowing that somebody was cooking right along with me, guys. So the first time I ever worked with live lobsters, the owners decided they were going to change the menu. They were going to add all this fancy pants stuff and pastas and lobster linguine and cream sauce. And, guys, I didn't know shit about lobster linguine. I never even cooked a live animal before, and I felt really bad for the lobsters. So I decided I was going to let them party a little bit before I put them in the pot. So I took them out of their little lobster thing. I think they came in a bucket. That they brought me a bucket of live like 2 of them, big boys. And I took them out of there, cut the rubber bands off, and I let them fight at each other and, go crazy and just have one last hurrah. And then I grabbed the largest tongs I could find and dropped them one by one into the boiling water. Yeah, I felt pretty terrible about it. I felt really bad. But then I had to figure out how to clean the lobsters and get the goods out. And I was becoming the baby chef, right? Even after an 8-hour shift, I would go out and I would pull my grill out and I'd sell $1 hot dogs to all the drunk people at 2:00 in the morning that were leaving. Probably 50, 60 drunk people coming at you from every direction. Ooh, hot dog, hot dog, hot dog. You guys, I would take an empty beer pitcher and fill that thing full of cash tips 4 times in 2 hours. And I served at that nightclub my very first celebrity. Now, I didn't meet her, but she had particular requests. And what she said, her name was Crystal Waters, 100% pure love, baby. She said that I had made her the best barbecued shrimp she'd ever had in her life. And I was like, just floored, And 2 decades later, I got to see her live in downtown Minneapolis at the Saloon Block Party, doing 100% pure love. And I could still remember that she said I made her the best grilled shrimp she ever had in her life, you guys. And mind you, no one ever taught me how to grill shrimp. I taught myself. This was before you could just get on Google and say, how do you make grilled shrimp? There was no Alexa. There was no Googling recipes. It was like, I got some shrimp. I thawed it out. I put it on the grill. I slapped some barbecue sauce on it and go, there you go, girlfriend. Eat, eat. But that's, I think, the moment when I learned that I think anything I touched, I transferred some love into it and people were going to like it, So I kept going with that. That's right. The most intimate thing you could do is make something that someone's going to put in their mouth. And this was probably one of the only jobs I've ever just walked right the fray out of. And I wasn't getting any help, and I was burning the bridge at both ends. And finally, I decided to torch the effer down. And one night, I just grabbed all my stuff, and I said, figure it out. Girls got to eat. So I got the first job I could, and I was working at a nursing home. Hospitals and institutions, they eat too. And this one was interesting. So we had clients that had no ability to chew. So I had a list of clients, I had a list of allergies, and I had to figure out how to make a lasagna you could suck through a straw. I mean, I didn't have to do it. I wanted to do it. I felt bad for people that, had to eat food that looked like somebody already chewed it up. So I decided that I was going to make a lasagna that you could suck through a straw, but you could see all the colorful layers. The Hamburglar was all, pureed. Like it was just like a little rainbow lasagna that literally you could suck it up through a straw and down it went. I didn't particularly care for this position, this job. And more of it was just about the people that I was working with. They didn't particularly care about their job. I took a lot of pride in making sure that I was following sanitation rules and that I was presenting, nice food to the clients. And I did the proper thing and I put in my notice, but I ended up getting a job at this place called Filio. And this was like my first, I felt like a real chef deal. It was an open Italian kitchen, so into my roots, Italian, ratatouille roots over here. And I was working in a kitchen like I'd never worked in before, where everything was fueled by fire. So they put me as a broiler assistant, and the broiler we would stuff logs into, and we have to keep the fire burning all night long. And we're grilling the large Italian steaks. I was in charge of, making sure Victor, my little 5 foot tall Latino dude, wasn't burning everything and helping things get plated correctly. And, I bring up the 5 foot tall Victor because he would wear one of the fluffy hats. We all had them. And every time he would be dancing around and doing his thing, he would hit me in the face with this fluffy hat. And I loved the energy of this kitchen. I loved working with the guys. This was my first time really working in a situation where I had a team. I had sous chefs. We had blind kitchens where they were reading off the tickets to us. Fire this, fire that. Table 6, order up, blah, blah, blah. There was expediters and I felt like the real deal. They had you wear the neckerchief and I remember the first time I put on my full uniform to go upstairs and work this position, I was so proud of myself as a chef, as a cook. I couldn't call myself a chef yet. A line cook, a broil cook. I really felt it. In combination of working with the flapping hat of Victor, there were many other things going on that I was in charge of. So to my left, I had flapping hat Victor. And to my right, I had the entree station pickup and also the pasta station pickup. So I was kind of I felt like the glue that held it all together in the middle. And then they'd have this thing called the fire show. So they'd say fire show. Basically what that meant was you would take a flaming hot pan of oil and throw a scoop of tomatoes in it, and it would create this massive fireball that shot up into the sky if you tilted the pan just right to catch the flames of the fire. And fire show was for all the guests that were dining out in the dining room, pretty much as entertainment. So we had fire show going on, and then we had pizza show. So on the other side of Flapping Hat Victor, we had the pizza station where they're hand tossing dough in the sky and they're putting pizzas into a fire fed oven. And pizza show was, okay, there's a thing of pizza flying at my face. I've got to catch it and I've got to send it down the line. So not only am I making sure Victor doesn't burn everything, making sure I don't get hit in the face with his hat, plating entrees that he's cooking, plating entrees coming out of entree station, and helping plate pasta station, and assisting with appetizers. I'm doing fire shows, and I'm catching flying pizza. And I learned how to work the pizza station, and I learned how to command the broil station. And eventually, on Mondays and Tuesday nights, I was running the pasta line and doing all of the pastas and plating desserts and plating salads. And I think the only station I didn't learn was in the back in the appetizer station. And let me tell you guys about this station. So in order to get to my walk-in cooler, I had to walk down this short line was the appetizer. And that's, I think, the first time I was ever like constantly molested by little Latino dudes. Constantly. I was flaquita. But I also learned a little bit of Spanish. No quemaron mi papas. So we had like a little microphone whenever we needed like roasted potatoes for any of our, like for as a side, or we needed an appetizer or something, fuego las papas, we had to say into the microphone, and it went into the appetizer kitchen. And, I was learning like little terms along the way, like, mi papas se están quemando, which means my potatoes are burning, because we would call for them, necesito las papas, so they would fire them back there in the fryers, because we didn't have fryers in our stations. And they would put them in a bowl and toss them in all the herbs and put them through the window. If we didn't see them show up and we noticed ours were getting low, we'd let them know that they were on fire or burning or burnt. Mi papas se están quemando, is what he would say. And I learned that from Victor, and that was like my thing, I had a lot of fun working that job. I had a lot of excitement. There was a lot of shit going on in reality. And, I think I was one of two women that actually worked in that kitchen, guys, at that time. My next real deal, I guess, was carvery chef. I went into the opening of Ike's Food and Cocktails. I felt like a real hot shot after working at Filio. That was the first time I was proud of myself. I was part of a large restaurant group. I had the neckerchief. I had the fluffy hat, and so I thought, well, I'm gonna go for like a real restaurant opening thing. And they were opening up this place called Ike's Food and Cocktails, and it was a kickback to the 50s. I went from the fluffy hat to the tall hat, the toque. So I worked on the end of a bar. And the first thing the customers would see when they walk in was me. And I had a flat top in front of me, which I was already familiar with the flat top. So no more fire, no more being on fire, no more tomatoes on fire, no more potatoes on fire. I was on a flat top griddle, and I was cooking hotspot food from around the world. This, guys, was my first job where we had a chef consultant who created the menu. And it was the first time I'd seen grown men cry. So this guy was a mean guy. The consultant was mean. If you messed something up, he would scream at you. If there was like a recipe one time that the sous chef messed up, and it was like marinating chicken, right? Pieces of chicken, barbecue chicken or something, I don't know. And he saw him marinating it to put directly on the line. And because this marinated needed an overnight take, he immediately took the chicken and said, "You didn't marinate this overnight." And he's like, "No, I'm marinating it right now to put it on the line." He took the chicken and he threw it in the trash, you guys. And we're talking like 50 pounds of chicken, which is very expensive. And it's just not even like because it's not marinated long enough, like because it's not ready right, like from yesterday, right now. It was like, what the heck? And so Dan was like crying because he was like, that's his food cost. This is his job. And his feelings were hurt, and as soon as the consulting chef left, Dan was pulling the chicken out of the trash and washing it to marinate it. to serve it. And I was just like, bro, this is going down, you know? And this was the first job that I learned like hot spot cooking. So I learned like what a chicken saute was, what a tuna tataki was, what a spring roll was, you know? But it was like they also had the Ike's burger, you know, and fries, and they had the slow roasted turkey and roast beef sandwiches for lunch. So it was like this weird menu of like, here's some future food, but like food from the past. And I would be up in the carvery station making my cool hotspot food, and people are walking in, they're seeing me, you know, doing stuff and making things, and I'd be constantly prepping, and I had to peel like, I don't know, 100 pounds of shrimp a day to make these massive shrimp cocktails, which every time I peeled the shrimp, it made me seasick, you know, and so I would kind of just like lean and peel so I wouldn't like pass out about it. Cause guys, I was still like really queasy about food, even up to this point, like raw food, raw animal, like it would make me queasy. And so like I really had to learn to cope with that. Women don't really talk about like what it's like to be on strong menstruation cramps when you're trying to peel 100 pounds of shrimp. Like I would go into the bathroom and lay on the floor in the stall and just like try to get a grip on myself so that I could continue my shift. I'd be in pain, I'd be nauseous, and I'd still have 100 pounds of shrimp looming over me. There was no calling in. Like I had rent to pay. I made my 10.50 an hour, and I had to pay my rent, and there was no calling in. There was no being weak. I was the only woman that worked in this kitchen. It was crazy because I still have a newspaper article with my picture serving those twin Charlies on a day that I wasn't even supposed to be at work. And it just so happened Star Tribune was coming in, but somebody called in sick. So I like went in the day after St. Patty's Day, hungover as hell. And I was like, just focus on the food, yo. And I ended up getting a part-time job down the street from that job at Dakota Jazz when they moved from St. Paul to Minneapolis. This was like, I felt like the first time I worked with really like culinary trained chefs, and also a real hard ass as a chef too. Ken, he would also make grown men cry, you know, and aside from a couple of the pastry chefs, I was the only female in the kitchen again, you know, with these well-trained culinary school graduates. And anytime I saw or felt like Ken was going to round the corner, I would look up and be like, is this how you like the scallions done, chef? You know, I would always look to the guys around me for, you know, am I doing this right? Before, you know, I ended up with hot polenta on my feet and tears in my eyes. That, you know, so I never got scolded by chef there. You know, I was very particular about my station. This is classic French, guys. French Midwest fusion. You know, this is where I made the 30 gallons of Bernays on Valentine's Day and whisked until I couldn't whisk anymore. I remember one time I was like, just took a big pile of garlic and I was whacking it all up. And I looked over and there's Chef Brian, and he's taking one piece at a time, just meticulously slicing it. And he's looking at me like, you're gonna get yelled at if anyone sees you doing that, you know? And so I would scrape it all into the trash and do what Brian was doing. And this was the job I learned about chef liquor store runs and what first cut meant. So if you got to be first cut or first out, they'd say FO, the guys would pull up money and have you run down and get them a bottle for those who had to stay and suffer on a slow night. And this was also the first position I ever held that I was given a culinary intern. I had a few interns. They all did well. They all graduated the salad station and went on to the dessert station. And I was like, good riddance, put them on the other side of the kitchen. And I ended up physically moving to Lakeville, Minnesota. So that put me like 30 miles away from those jobs in downtown. And I said, that's enough. I got a job at the casino in Lakeville, Minnesota on the Midewakanton Sioux Reservation. I started working for Mystic Lake. But here's the catch. I got to work in the Little Six teepee casino and not in the actual large, what they called the big house. And I was just happy to have a job. I was happy to have benefits. I was happy to have paid time off. sick time. Like this was all like news to me. I couldn't believe it. I had a little bank in my PTO, and every time I worked, I'd get a 0.5 in there. And then I also had the BCA fingerprint background check. And it was funny because when they were taking my fingerprints, I had a big burn scar on one of my thumbs. So that was in my fingerprint. They found me through the other thumb, but basically they're, making sure you're not a criminal because now you're working in a casino. And you had to go through the 5-star training and, like how everyone was a guest. If a guest drops a nickel on the ground, you don't touch it. If a guest doesn't like their food, you make them new food. If a guest loses all their money, they get coupons for free food. So the restaurant at the Little Six was always rockin', always busy. And you were making prime rib dinner, slicing up the primes. You were doing crab legs, unlimited supply all night long. You were doing omelets to order. You're doing Salisbury steaks. You're rocking 6 French fryers and having to clean them all every night. It just depended on what station you were on. And I'm working with culinary graduates who learned how to tweezer a leaf onto a plate, and they're hating their life because they're flipping fries and slicing meatloaf, And I thought this was a fantastic job. They moved you around. You got to prep one day. You got to line cook on a different station another day. And if you were even so lucky and a dishwasher didn't show up, you got to work with the Chinese man who didn't speak any English except for chicken or fish or beef. And I tell you, that's where I really learned the power of body language in a kitchen and how you could communicate with just about anybody on how you move and how you smile. Isn't that right, Luna? Yes. She's telling me she's tired and wants a cookie. You had noticed when the tribes were coming in and you made sure that anything they ordered was cooked to perfection, but it could be the most simplest thing like grilled cheese sandwich. And from there, guys, I left and became a sous chef. And we're going to continue this saga of a chef's life, a day in the life, on part 2 of episode 5. So you're just going to have to wait for it. Again, I want to send my gratitude to all of my followers and subscribers. If you want to hear and be ready, like and subscribe because we have so much more to cover in these short episodes. Thank you for listening to Mouth Mentality. My name is Chef Heidi Marsh. We talk to everyday people about everyday food. Thank you for listening to Mouth Mentality. Catch us when we dish out the next story.